Hi, good evening, everybody. City of Clear Lake Shores City Council regular meeting, September 20th, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. All council members are present, and we have a quorum. Item number 2 is pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the Texas flag. All right, good evening. Item number 3 is reports from council. Councilman Steve Wardis.
Just wanted to say a thank you to those involved in remedying the gas leak that was on Birch Road over the weekend, and I thought that they addressed it in a very rapid manner and exercised safety as well. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Wurst. Councilman Rick Fisher.
I guess, Chris, are you going to give the report for tonight since we didn't get to do it last week? Yeah. Okay. And I also want to say thank you for everybody that put together the dinner this past Wednesday over at Opus Ocean for the Galveston County Mayor and Council Association. That it was fantastic, and I think it's one of the better ones that we've been able to attend. Good job, guys.
Good job. Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Next, Councilwoman Monica Leday.
I actually want to echo that sentiment. You guys were amazing, and I think that it definitely was one of the better ones I've been to. Also, there on October 1st from 5 to 8, Bayou Animal Shelter is having a Bow Wow Meow Bayou, wow, that is hard to say. Bow Wow Meow Bayou Luau. And they're doing $20 pet adoptions in an effort to lessen the population of their pets out there. And then a notice was sent out through the city for Clear Lake Watershed Partnership. They're setting up meetings for tomorrow and Thursday. I encourage you to go on and log in. It's just an hour, and that's it. I'll talk about STRs when it comes up on the agenda.
Thank you, Ms. Leday. Next is Councilman Alex Scanlon.
I have no report tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Scanlon. Councilman Randy Chronister.
Yes, that was a very nice meeting. To reiterate that, I really liked your comment, Kurt, about welcome to paradise. That was awesome.
Thank you, Mr. Chronister. That's what we, there's a big fight that says Kemah and Seabrook, they're always talking about the gateway to Galveston and stuff like that, and 146 and who owns it and stuff. So we said that everybody took a gateway to get to Clear Lake Shores, and now you're in paradise. So they really enjoyed that. Just to let you know a couple things, Clear Lake Shores Kemah last night with the ESB, we passed a $1 million budget for that, and they'll continue to go well. They are looking at possibly increasing fees from $7.50 to $10. The big item there is to save up money for a new emergency or fire station down the road, 3-5 years down the road. And have those monies in the coffers instead of going out and getting a loan to do that. And there is a big push out there for a new fire station. Me personally, I think for the city, we don't need that yet. The one on 146 suffices, but down the road, as Kemah continues to grow and Clear Lake Shores builds out across the street, I think we'll probably have a need for that. But I would rather see having the funds for that instead of doing the bank loans. Next is Bay Area Heart Walk. Please register online. We've got the Clear Lake Shores Sunsetters again going. It'll be down at the Kemah Boardwalk on November 12th. I know it's the same day as the Thanksgiving. Maybe you go down there and walk and then come back and eat the turkey. And we would appreciate any donation, of course, for the American Heart Association. Next is staff reports. Police Department Chief Keel.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. I want to remind everyone that National Night Out is October the 4th. It'll be 2 weeks from today. We're going to gather up once again at Jarbo and have a little emergency vehicle parade and some golf carts and end up at Shell Bottom like we always do. I'll have some giveaways and give everybody an opportunity to get out and meet their neighbors and kind of mix around and say hello to each other. And the other thing I have is we took delivery on the Motorola WatchGuard equipment, and I am currently coordinating with that vendor and our IT vendor for deployment. That includes installation, upfitting of the cars with the cameras, and the installation and upfitting of the equipment upstairs for uploads and storage of evidence and data. So I'm looking forward to doing that. Hopefully we'll get that started early next week. You have any questions?
Thank you, Chief Kill. Next is City Administrator Brent Spear.
Well, most of my thunder's been taken, so I do have a written report and an update on the Texas Parks and Wildlife grant for Shell Bottom. Did get a call back from Army Corps about 5:30. They're in the they're assembling the approval documents. They required a little bit more detail on some of the structures that are going to be built out to the water, so they've made contact with the engineering company for that, and I anticipate that hopefully by the second meeting in October we should have a permit that will allow us to move forward with bidding that work so that we can move forward with that grant proposal and get that fixed. Timing has been drawn out, but the timing may work to our advantage, as probably could be a possibility of winter construction, which is ideal for us. So less activity down there. Daniel Drawer Avenue, council voted to rename that, and I did talk to GIS with Galveston County. They are in the process of updating their maps and making those changes. And then we also notified first responders, school corporation, various offices within Galveston County, as well as any property owners directly affected or within a 200-foot halo of that change. And so that is moving forward, and we had earmarked that for November 1st date, so I think we're doing fine on it. SLRF funding, that's coronavirus funding. I was able to get a number of documents uploaded to the U.S. Treasury, which will meet our reporting requirements, and I expect a second payment from U.S. Treasury within a few weeks. And I've been very careful with that funding because didn't want to spend it on something that 5 years from now they come knocking on the door and say, we need that money back. So they have changed the rules. Originally it didn't really allow us to do anything because we don't have utilities and other things in those 7 categories, healthcare and whatnot. So as they made their final rule, I think we do qualify for some work, so we're looking forward to maybe having that aggregated, and it'll allow us to do some work around the city. The Public Works, you might have noticed an open hole over here next to City Hall. We had a drainage structure that was made entirely of wood, kind of like the little piggy's house. It had some posts driven in there and some wooden planking, and it just rotted away. So we were able to get that cleaned up and did a poured and concrete structure. Not as good as a precast where you bring it in, drop it in, but it did fit our needs, and hopefully it'll last longer than wood. So Public Works did a fine job on it. And we also have a hole that is open in Jarbo Park right now. We have 2 water leaks that we're addressing. That should be taken care of tomorrow. They were identified, started working on it today. Also, just FYI, our new certified building official will start next Monday. Again, his name is Jason Ellison, and we're readying his office for him and his onboarding materials. He's completed a lot of that paperwork, and we look forward to having him join city staff. So hopefully bring him on easily. And I think the rest of this, so maybe with the exception of if someone's here from Roads and Drainage, I don't see anyone. Unless Alex is going to talk about it, I'll leave that for my report. Sorry. Go ahead. Okay, well, with Roads and Drainage, they're doing, we're gathering data points for outfalls and ditches in certain sections of the city, and that's really good hard data. Our original drainage plan was had, a number of points, but it wasn't in this detail. So we're identifying spots that need addressed. If there is a culvert that's out of alignment, by a determined amount, then that will be earmarked for removal and replacement, and then also profiling ditches and looking at additional structures. So we've done, this is the third set of those data points, and after this I think we'll have enough data that we can move forward with a plan regarding Narcissus, which is kind of the big pavement plan this year. Another thing that we're looking at is we're waiting for winter. I have a contractor come out and look at the duckbill outfalls that are all up underwater right now in the lake. Those keep, hopefully, tidal waters from coming in. However, they are defeated with something as simple as a soda can. If it gets lodged in there, it can't close. So we have several of those. We have some that don't have them, and I just encourage everyone, if drainage is really important to you, as it should be based on our location, please try to take good care of maintenance of things in front of your house. When we did open up this drain, we did find a tombstone in the bottom of it. It was a styrofoam tombstone from Dollar Tree, but it still was in there, and I couldn't figure out how it got all the way down through a pipe that's covered for 300 feet, but it made it. And something just as silly as that can get wedged in there and create a obstruction and cause a lot of problems for people. So just be aware of those things, and that's all I have.
Yeah, Brent, I have one question on the Daniel Drawer Avenue. Is Galveston County doing all the signage for the roads? And then what about on 2094, the intersection sign?
We notified TxDOT of that change, but I haven't made contact with them, and I need to contact Galveston County.
Okay.
I just wanted to, we did send notification to the engineering department, and we've been working with them.
The one in Galveston?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, no further comments. Thank you, Brent. Next is item 5, committee reports, Parks and Pool. You want to get that mic for her, please?
Well, I was out of town at the last city council meeting, and I was out of town at our meeting on August 15th. So I do want to make a note that our meeting is changed to the third Thursday of the month instead of the second Thursday. It'll still be 5:30, and we meet at various locations, so I just post that. I want to thank Brent for really getting these minutes together, since I really wasn't at the meeting, but I have the notes from that. As discussing the park, there was a request for monofilament line containers for the T-heads at Jarbo, for those 2 docks at Jarbo. I was informed today that they were ordered. The monofilament line containers are in. They will be installed soon at the docks, at the 2 docks in at Jarbo. Depot, there was replacing decking at the fishing pier, and they're considering building additional deck along the fencing where people already fish and where it's muddy. Sundial looked good. Birdhouses are starting to rot there at Triangle Park, and I believe the Public Works Committee is going to build and replace those as needed. We have a new member on our, we have a new committee member, Mary Cooney. She works with the community garden, and there was some discussion of whether to consider that a park, but it was decided to continue as a garden spot as the current status. Also was a discussion of ordinance, Article 5, Section 66-138B4, vehicles and parking. It is unlawful for any person in a public park or recreation area to park a motor vehicle or trailer at any park between the hours of 12 and 5 a.m. As we've had a lot of reports, there's been a lot of people parking their excess vehicles in the parking lot at Jarbo by the pool. And I believe those signs were ordered, Brant, correctly? Have they come in, or? They're in. Okay. So I believe they're going to be put one of those signs up at the parking lot there at Jarbo. And let's see. one of the big items we've been discussing for a few years, actually, is doing a different gate entry system at the pool. The situation has gotten so where we thought that would work out better than the guards, and especially since there's a real shortage of hiring guards. There was a quote, but it included City Hall, pool, and clubhouse. And I think, Brent, you're still getting together quotes for just the gate for the pool?
Yeah, I'm gonna have them break.
Okay. We will discuss that. We did not have a meeting last night. We will have one in October. And Brent gave the update of the boat ramp project. And I think, let's see. Oh yes, we've had noticed, including myself, that kids were jumping up on the lifeguard stand, diving and jumping off, and so I reported it and thanked Brent for, there's now a plastic cover over the guard stand so kids can't jump and dive off of it. I think that's it.
Thank you, Chris. Roads and drainage, anybody want to add anything? Oh, zoning board of adjustments and planning and zoning, Mr. Michalski.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. There are no reports for Zoning Board of Adjustments. Planning and Zoning did meet last night, 7 o'clock. There were 2 replats that were requested, and those 2 were approved. Both were on Pine. So, not much else to report there.
All right. Thank you. And next is Waterfront Compliance Committee. All right, Steve.
Council, the Waterfront Committee has nothing to report.
Great job, Steve.
All right. Pass. All right. Let's see. Next is item 6, Civic Club Activity Report.
Okay, well, Chief kind of stole my National Night Out thunder, but that's okay. We have Saturday, October 1st is going to be the block party on the bridge between Clear Lake Shores and Lazy Bend. Not sure what time it starts. I think it starts around 5. Tuesday, October 4th, as Chief mentioned, is National Night Out, starting here. Going down there, we'll be serving free hot dogs and the free giveaways from the Chief. Saturday, October 21st through 22nd is the barbecue cook-off. We'll again be selling barbecue plates, have live music, jump for the kids. Palapa Mac will be there, I think, from 11 to 6. And he's hoping to have about 18 to 20 teams that day. So, that's all we got. Anybody have any questions?
What about the, in their yard signs and all the assets in the fire department and ambulance will also be at National Night Out, so come out and thank all those folks,
Yes.
volunteers.
On Facebook, they put out there that we're selling signs, and those will be ordered on Thursday. You don't have to pay for them now. Just kind of go in and say, I want a sign, I want 2 signs, I want 3 signs. You know, if you think you've got a street that wants 10 signs, let us know so we can get them ordered, because the more we order, the better it is. It gets really costly when we go back and order 1 or 2. And then Peggy Wright is making bows, and we're taking donations for those. So, and all that money will be split between the police department and the fire department and awarded to them on National Night Out.
All right, thank you. And then the 60th Anniversary Celebration Committee?
Nothing new.
Nothing new. It's coming up. Get your tickets.
We're selling tickets. We've got another table sponsor, so all moving along.
Item number 8, EDC. Johnny? No? Pass. All right. Item number 9, public comments. At this time, any person with city-related business may speak to the city council. Topic of discussion must be consistent with an item listed on the agenda. In compliance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, city council may not deliberate. Comments from public should be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes per individual. Well, hey.
Good evening, Rick Birchfield at 1111 Jennifer. I wanted you guys to take a quick look at your ordinance 2022-08 that you're going to be voting on possibly tonight. While I'm not an advocate for or against or anything on the short-term rental thing, I have to look out for my own interest, and I'm one of these lowlifes that y'all hate on the ground still. And my home's paid for. I don't plan on raising my home unless it gets wiped out. Oh, okay. And so in your wording of this thing, you say that it makes it unlawful to rent a short-term rental to anyone under the age of 25 and prohibiting space below the base flood elevation from being eligible for a short-term rental permit. That kind of like X's me out. Not that I want to do that, and I know you're limited to 20, but you're taking us people on the ground and just saying that you have no right to do that, and I take objection to that. Just wanted to make that a public statement. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
From what I understand, the new STR rental or permit fee was going to be $1,000. We've got several $100,000 invested in this little house on East Shore. I looked at my numbers today. We had 9 rentals last year. They averaged $500 each weekend. So next year, you're going to take my first 2 rentals and keep all of that money in advance of me ever getting another rental. The $75 fee that you got now is okay with me, but what if instead of the 7% hotel occupancy tax, you collected 15% from everyone with an STR for each rental? I could deal with that. I would pay $80-something per rental. The people with the party houses that you're upset with, they might pay $300 per rental because they get 2,000 or more for those party houses. So you're going to put me out of business if you're going to charge me $1,000 to play. So I guess that's it.
What was your name? I'm sorry.
Don Taylor.
Don Taylor, thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? Having none, we'll close public comments. Item 10, council will wish to pull any items A or B from consent agenda. Hearing none, any objection to accepting consent agenda items A and B? Having none, consent agenda is accepted. Item 11, new business, discussion and possible action may be taken on the following items. All right, here I go. Is it on the screen? All right. I don't have to read it? I still have to read it? Okay. Ordinance 2022-08, an ordinance of the City of Clear Lake Shores, Texas, amending Article 7, short-term rentals of Chapter 18, Businesses and Business Regulations by amending Section 18-133, short-term rental permit, required to limit the number of short-term rental permits to 20 by amending Section 18-134, short-term rental compliance with other law to make it unlawful to rent a short-term rental unit to any person under the age of 25 and prohibiting space below base flood elevation from being eligible for a short-term rental permit by amending Section 18-135, permit registration fee, application and occupancy regulations by changing the fee and timing of a short-term rental permit, requiring additional information in a short-term rental permit application, making other changes to the application process, and providing for civil penalties for violation by amending Section 18-136, notification of complaints to requiring noise and conduct complaints to be directed to the police department, and placing a maximum of four violations per owner or operator by amending section 18-137 compliance and penalty provision by mandating that all short-term rental permits issued to an owner or operator shall be revoked upon a fifth conviction of a violation of this ordinance by amending section 18-138 permit suspension or revocation appeal to remove the requirement of a conviction prior to suspension or revocation by amending section 18-139 minimum standards of conduct by adding requirements to the minimum standards of conduct to be provided to all renters of a short-term rental unit, providing a penalty in an amount not to exceed $2,000 for any violation of this ordinance, with each day constituting a separate violation, providing a severability clause and an effective date.
I'm not gonna reread all of that. And I wanna make a motion so we can discuss, but I don't wanna vote, so I don't know how to make that motion. I know you just told me. Okay, I make a motion to discuss.
I'll second.
Okay, so I'm gonna lead off first, because I'm sure everybody has a lot to say, but there's several things that I think need to be, first of all, rewritten a little clearer, and there's a lot of things that I want to get council's feedback on that a lot of the residents have been bringing up. The space below flood elevation, I will address that. The reason why we put that in there is because if you own your home, you live there, you pay for your flood insurance, you're aware of where you are with relation to the floodplain. If you're a short-term rental, you don't know all of that, so your safety is of concern. So the reasoning why we put that in there is because for us to have a good FEMA rating for all of the residents of the island, it doesn't work if a short-term renter is renting something below the floodplain. So that's why that's there. The minimum legal age of 25, I'd really like to get everybody's feedback on that. I've gotten a lot of kickbacks on it. I personally could go either way. I understand the pros and the cons of it. I don't know that I necessarily believe it's going to stop any kind of parties, which I think was the spirit of it, that we put the age 25 as opposed to a 2 or 3 night minimum stay. Either one I don't think is going to stop the parties if they're going to happen. Permit fee, I've gotten a lot of calls on the permit fee. I personally voted for it to be lower. I was outvoted with the committee. So I think we should consider if $1,000 is where we really want to be, or maybe we can go to something like $250 or $500. The other major changes I think are all good. The number 5, only 1 STR per permit will be issued. This is something that was added on there. Currently the ordinance refers to townhomes and condominiums and hotels. It doesn't refer to two houses in one parcel. So we added that it could only be 1 permit, but I think that the verbiage was changed to say 1 property per parcel. I don't necessarily think that we need to do that. I think that if they want to rent both properties, it just needs 1 permit number. I don't think that it should have to be 1, am I saying that right? 1.
Yeah. What item is
unit.
that?
It's item number 5 on,
Maybe the intent was, if you try to rent 2 pieces in 1 parcel, each one needs a permit?
each one, I think each one
Yeah, I
should need
believe
a
that's what it was
permit
for.
or,
Each building has to have its own permit, and
permit.
that's why that was in there.
Yeah.
right, but the way it reads in this draft is it can only have 1. But like, the building has to be chosen. So if you have a house if you have 2 houses on 1 piece of property, you have to pick which one can be an STR. It's the way it's written currently in here, which I don't think is what we had intended. The fines. So the fines are something that we've gone back and forth with the attorneys on. I like the fines. I think that we need to have the fines. it's very clearly stated in here, you know, you have your fine warning, $300, $500, and then revoked or suspended, and your course of action, if you don't agree with your fine that you've been given, is you bring it to council. Well, council meets every 2 weeks. So the longest you'd have to wait in between your fourth fine, or any fine, would be 2 weeks. So I think that that's expedient enough to come to council and to have your case heard, personally. The second set where it talks about in section 5, after 4 years suspended, more clearly defined in here. It's written, you have 5 and then 4. Well, it's only 4. There's never been any mention of 5, so that needs to be changed. And then after 4 violations, you have to come to council to keep your STR. I mean, I think we're all adults. If it's something bogus and it's somebody just nagging, then council will stop it. And the violations are police coming to your property and giving you a violation, or you not following the rules set aside. You know, you've got too many people. You're listing on Airbnb for a 20-person, 2-bedroom house. You know, yeah, administrative with Brent. Not, you know, your garbage is too full, because we can't police that. So Brent, you got, Rick, you got a lot of yellow over there.
Yes, I do.
Cool. That's good.
One, you were just talking about the 4 notices of violation. What I don't like about that is it seems to be inclusive of things that the owner-operator would honestly be responsible for, i.e., you know, not taking care of trash, not renewing their permit, you know, just all sorts of stuff like that. Or it looks like that also would include anytime the police are called out for somebody doing just a noise violation, which that owner has no control over.
Correct.
And so after 4 of those, and again, there's no time limit on that. So say once every 2 years you got somebody that, you know, gets a little out of control, the police have to come, they issue a citation. So, you know, I mean, it doesn't reset. So after 4 of those, after an extended period of time, after numerous rentals, you're going to pull somebody's certificate. I'm not good with that because an owner does not have control over that.
And I'm not inclined to disagree with you on that, and we can definitely put a time period on it. That would work. And you gotta remember, all of this can be contested. That's what I'm looking for.
So really the time period should be the permits yearly. You're renewing your permit every year. So
There
it
you go.
shouldn't be over a 5-year period. It should be over that 12 months that you have that permit, and then you gotta renew it anyway at the end of the year. So there's the time period. It's 12 months. 'Cause you're renewing the permit anyway.
Yeah, that makes sense. But just to touch on that base flood elevation too, I think I see what you were trying to do with that. So somebody that's trying to get an STR now, where they've got something that has not been grandfathered into the base flood elevation, like what Rick was saying, his home has been there long enough. He's grandfathered in through FEMA to be below base flood elevation, so able to carry flood insurance on his place. I agree with you on that. I don't think that should be something that should be included in there. Now, if somebody is coming in with new construction and trying to put something below base flood and then rent that out as an STR, absolutely.
So here's the one thing about that, and this goes along with the 25-year-old thing. So I was for some of those things because we found those in other ordinances that other cities were using. But there's been a lot of talk about it since then. A lot of things have come to me. I've had some time to do more and more research. One of the things that came up were rental cars. Well, you got to be 25 years old to rent a car. But the rental car company's making that rule, not the government. So that was a very good point, and it resonated with me. Should we, as a governmental body, start dictating what some of these people can do with their personal property? Because our government that's higher up doesn't see this as a business. They don't see it as anything other than personal property. Well, I argue the fact because, hey man, you're charging the public to make a profit. It's a business. But we don't have the support in the courts to rule that way. You know, I don't know if you guys got what Georgette sent out to all of us that's on the committee, but, you know, there was a ruling there, and one of the things that judge said was that there were other ways for us to control things and minimize things, and one of them was capping it, raising fines and fees, those natured things, not constitutional things, if you will. So, now that I've had a chance to think about it, I'm not sure we need to be the ones putting an age limit on it. You know, it's not our business. We're not running a business. We don't own the business. Maybe we shouldn't be getting into that business of naming. Right now, Airbnb says 18. Well, that's their business that they're running. They can dictate that. Maybe we are overstepping our boundaries a little bit, like some of them said, and we shouldn't be worried about that. We do have other ordinances. You know, I've talked in length with the chief about it. You know, chief was busy today, but I went down and got a schedule because I know Lawrence said something about taking the fines and fees out of this ordinance. But as Clear Lake Shores, we do have a fine and fee schedule on many, many things. There's one on here for noise. That fine is $265. It's already on here. So there are some things that will help regulate them. My concern about what Rick brought up is we have people living in homes. If they're going to consider that it's personal property, even for someone to rent it, maybe we're getting into a legal battle that we might not want to fight because we're making an ordinance that says, hey, you can't use that. And I know what FEMA says, but FEMA hasn't said you got to move out of your house because it's below BFE.
I think at a minimum, it has to at least be listed on the information sheet that this house is below flood level. At a minimum. I can see the spirit of that particular, the difference in between allowing a homeowner to live there and a short-term rental person to live there, or even a long-term rental. I mean, they've got to be notified of where they are so they can make the decision to rent it or not to rent it.
And one of the things with the STR thing you had in here too, though, that if there's any kind of evacuation that's, you know, going to be mandated for, you know, the storm coming in, flooding or anything, they're going to be moving out anyway. They're, you know, I say, you know, having to, you know, leave. So.
Patrick Bachowski, 1019 North Shore. The question I would have on the BFE is, which BFE are you using? It used to be nice and standard at 11 feet. Now it's 14 feet in some places, 16 in the other. So you're going to have to know the BFE of each house out there, so you need to consider that.
Yeah, so that needs to be in the ordinance if we're going to do that. That specifies each person applying for a permit has to provide us with their BFE of that property. And that's pretty easy to do.
Well, it's almost already regulating itself, the whole BFE thing, because any construction that occurs should be compliant with BFE plus our 12 inches of freeboard in the city. If it was built 10 years ago, it's going to be 12 feet. If it's built now, it's going to be 15, 16, 17 feet. So unless someone has illegally built something underneath their house, converted a garage, which was never permitted, which that should be resolved with or without the STR ordinance, you know, that shouldn't be an issue. If there's an STR that our building official goes into that's in a garage and he goes, hey, this isn't permitted on the original plans, which I think you referenced in here actually, which I thought was really good, then he says, hey, this isn't a permitted living space, it doesn't exist, you can't rent this out, and then it resolves itself. And that's really how even permanent residences and everything are generally regulated, or long-term rentals, right? I can't go and convert my downstairs to a living space. It's 6'2" above sea level, and then rent the house out, and that's in violation of every law that already exists.
Something I think we all need to be mindful of are a lot of people, which is the majority of people, who do not have an STR, who have no desire to have an STR. And the fact that I think we need to be mindful of the people who live in close proximity. It's sad that there's some STRs that are stinkers, that ruin it for everybody else. But I'm concerned about the quality of life. I would like to see us, and I know that the purpose of all this is to try to maintain the spirit of Clear Lake Shores as a neighborhood and not a party resort community. If that's going to happen, you're going to have all kinds of, you cannot regulate who's going to be coming in the neighborhood, and I only see trouble down the road.
Ms. Michalski?
Linda Michalski, 1019 North Shore. Mr. Scanlon, I totally agree with what you just stated. I've been a resident now 34 years. I applied for every permit to build living space below the base flood elevation, and I was granted that. FEMA has approved my home 2 different occasions, along with TCEQ and the Central Appraisal District. FEMA has personally inspected my home 2 different occasions. So there are cases where if you apply and you do it legally, you can have permitted living space below the base flood elevation. Now, I personally have no intention of renting my home as an STR. I don't want to be in the hotel business. Years ago, I did let friends stay with me for 6-8 months. One girl shared space with me for 5 years. It was never a problem for the first 10 years. I am currently asking that, should I sell my home in the future? We're retired now. I would like the threat of criminal charges to use my area below the base flood elevation rescinded, and I would like to ask that the money I've had to spend to defend a legally built home be reimbursed. And I thank y'all for considering that, as the local building official has asked me to come to y'all. He can't exonerate it, but you on council can. I thank you for your consideration.
Turn your mic on.
To put pen to paper to some of these things, what is the council's thoughts on minimum legal age?
On what?
On the minimum legal age?
I don't like it.
Yeah, I think if you're old enough to go and rent a hotel room any place, that yeah,
I
we
think if
should.
you're old enough to go to war, you're old enough to do a lot of stuff. So.
Exactly.
Okay.
Maybe we just don't have an age. That will probably police itself too, because Airbnb has a minimum age. You know what I mean? Maybe we don't get involved in that.
Permit fee.
Yeah, there we go. That was my next one. You know, I kind of got to echo what Don was saying there, that if you've got somebody that's got a small place that they've only got maybe 1 bedroom, maybe 2 that they rent out, versus somebody that's got a 4 or 5 bedroom one, you know, in the amount of you know, the amount of rentals that you get per year, like I said, for somebody that's like that, you know, 9 times a year at, you know, $500, that's $4,500. Now you're spending $1,000 of that for a fee every year for something that you don't rent out that much. You know, and you don't have the potential income on that as much as somebody that's got a bigger place. I'd like to see something in there as far as the fee structure, you know, based more on, you know, maybe the size of the place, the number of rental rooms that are available with it, or occupants that they can have. You know, maybe base it on, you know, the number of rentals they did the year prior, you know, or a combination thereof. So unfortunately, I don't have a solution to propose, but just could we look at something like that?
So what I had proposed initially to the committee, I took the national average. I had researched a bunch of other neighboring cities, what they charged, and I took the formula is you take the total amount of STRs that you have in your neighborhood, what their average base rate is, per night, and then I think multiply it by 2 or 3. And the number was like $325 or $385, I can't remember, it's been a while. But that was what I had proposed the number be. A lot of conversation was had that we were going to have increased costs to police all of the new regulations and all of the current regulations that aren't being policed. So that was part of the reasoning for the higher fee. I personally don't think that the higher fee is going to stop anybody from having an STR here except for the good STRs that are small and managing themselves. I've been against the high fee since the beginning. I was outvoted by the committee. So my vote is definitely to lower it. We can look at either a percentage. I don't necessarily like a percentage of the revenue, only because it's really hard to figure out. And especially if it's somebody new just getting an STR, they don't know what it's going to be. So I think that, you know, a median, that word, the average of the night stay I think is good, or even if we just arbitrarily pick a number, $250, $500. If it's $1,000 it is, then $1,000 it is. But I think that that's a bit exorbitant, and I don't think that the value that we recoup as a city charging that $1,000 warrants the hardship that we put on our residents that do have STRs, in my opinion.
So you're right, a lot of that was to do with the fees and the amount of labor that our office is going to put into keeping up with ads, doing all these things. So that number just wasn't pulled out of the air. That number was figured on talking to Kevin at the time and Angie on everything that they do. And I think Christy can attest that every time there's a violation, there has to be court documents made, sent back and forth, and it takes a lot of time. So we talked about, okay, well, we can get fees. I think, you know, even some of the citizens brought to my attention that we hadn't collected any fees. We got some fees pending, but we hadn't collected a penny on any of the violations, and I think Brent can attest to that. So that's not money you can say, oh, well, we're going to get $1,000 if they make this violation. You can't really do that. So I think that's where the origination of the higher fee came in, not to control them or put them out of business, but to say, hey, this is going to be an added cost to our citizens and to our office help to police this, so to speak. Well, where does that money come from? Do we want to have an ad valorem tax when we start spending a lot of money in court fighting fees and things like that? Is that where that's going to go? Because that's where that could go when we start spending a lot of our resources on someone else running an STR. So that's where I said in the beginning, some of this should self-fund itself to do those things, because the STR owners aren't going to provide us with a person that's going to police their STR. We're going to have to provide that as a city. So there's a fee for that. And we're not trying to put anybody out of business, but we don't regulate how many nights you can rent it. That's your choice. You know, we don't tell you what to charge. That's your choice. So if we're going to do something like that, the only thing that we really could consider is how many bedrooms they're renting. You know, we don't control how many nights they rent it. That's their personal property. They can rent it however they want. They might have to rent it more to cover the fees. That's not on us, really. And when you look at it now, we capped it at 20. So there's $20,000, and we talked about an intern, Brent, right? You know, what that's going to cost. We go to one court case, and you're going to eat a lot of that up. So money's got to come from somewhere. So
I like a non-linear fee schedule based on occupancy. I think that something like that makes a lot of sense. Where if you got 2 people or 4 people, it's, I don't know, $200. If you got 14, it's $2,500. I'm making up numbers here, but something that's, as it becomes a party house, which is where all the concern is, that it would ratchet up significantly to make them only advertise less.
Have we addressed the insurance portion of it? That is, if I was to rent my car out, my insurance company, my automobile insurance would be wild. They wouldn't cover me if the party had an accident. Has that been, I apologize, I haven't found it in here.
No, we have, we decided that we Airbnb provides a layer of insurance, your homeowner's insurance provides a layer of insurance, and forcing insurance on somebody, they're already covered. Just like if you rent your car through Turo, you pay, a portion of your rental already goes towards insurance. So when they're listing their house through Airbnb or VRBO or whomever, they already are carrying a level of insurance.
But that's assuming one goes through the Airbnb route. What about folks that don't do that? They do it privately.
Well, there's not a lot of that, first of all, but if they do it privately and they don't have an insurance policy to cover renters, shame on them. They should. That's their property that's going to get damaged. The city's not going to recoup anything from it anyway.
And again, I go back to the folks that live in close proximity. I've gotten an earful from a few neighbors, and I feel for them. I'm happy it's not me, and I want to do everything to make sure that that never becomes me.
Craig, and then Mr. Taylor.
I'm not sure what'll do best, me yelling at you or talking through here, but sorry. Regarding the fee, I voted for the $1,000. Sorry, Don. But once I got Renell's boot out of my behind for voting yes, I convinced her. Why? Because of what Randy's saying. I was trying to be the good guy and say, yeah, the SDR should kind of pull their own weight here. I agreed with that. But what's ironic to me, and if you're going to start doing this occupancy thing, I don't think that's fair. It should be a flat fee. And what's odd to me is a hotel with now we don't have them yet, but someday. If a hotel has 100 rooms and charges $250, $300 a night, they pay $1,000. If I have my little shack in my backyard and get $100 a night, I pay $1,000. And that's okay. I voted for that. But I don't understand the thing with hotels, and it's not a big deal because we don't have one. But I'm just kind of throwing that out there. But personally, as an STR owner, I don't have a problem with the $1,000. Monica had come up with a company, I think, that was going to oversee all of the Airbnb stuff for the city, so we didn't have to mess with it. The paperwork, the ads, the whole shot. And that was what, $10,000 a year?
I don't remember.
I think it was $10,000 a year, but it pretty much covered everything. And I thought, okay, cool. If there's 20 of us, that's 20,000. The rest will go wherever. But that's why I agreed with that number. And the other ironic thing is, Kitty and ourselves and I think Angela have had Airbnbs for 6 or more years, and it didn't cost y'all one penny till you stirred up all this stuff. You didn't have to spend one penny monitoring us. So anyway, I'm okay with $1,000. But on the 25-year-old thing, absolutely, it's got to go. I will challenge it to the end of my days. I'll follow all the rules on parking, noise, drunkenness, running naked in the streets. Anything you come up with, I'll follow them, and I'll make sure my people know to do it. But Renell and I both agree that you won't cross the line into our home and tell us what age person we're allowed to associate with. And I wrote y'all sarcastic nonsense like you're used to, but I hope I made my point. And an 18-year-old can go to war, come home from duty, but he can't stay at my house. A 22-year-old can be a fireman or a policeman. A 21-year-old can be that, but he can't stay at my house. Come on.
I think we just addressed that, though. We just took that out of there.
Oh,
Craig.
We
did.
did.
You hear that?
It's marked off.
Bye, thank you.
You were on the front row.
Sorry for wasting my time.
You're on the front row.
Oh, cool.
Mr. Taylor,
I'll leave you alone now.
did you want to talk?
mentioned it a while ago, y'all are gonna take the first 2 rentals from me next year in advance. Whether I ever get another one or not, I paid $1,000. I don't quite understand how that works. If you would, and maybe there's a state rule about hotel occupancy taxes and what you can charge, but I guess what I'm saying is, if you charge 15% instead of 7%, you'd get $80 from me every time I rent something. And these big houses that get 2,000.
The percentages are set by the state.
Okay. Well, so I don't know how you go about doing it, but what I'm saying is the party house that gets 2,000 a weekend, he ought to pay more. And if you charge him 15% like you charged me, it's kind of like a flat tax. I mean, a lot of people have talked about the IRS doing a flat tax instead of this other thing. Then the guy that makes a lot of money pays a lot of money. The guy that doesn't make much money, he doesn't have to pay much money. It seems to be fair.
I think that it's kind of an agreement that we look at.
My place is small, and I only get 100 and maybe 30 a night in my pocket. It's nothing at all. But we're busy every single night. But
Yeah,
still,
Craig, you need to address city council, not other people.
but still, I would end up paying $3,000 or $4,000 a year, and I don't get that much. So I don't know. Whatever.
One thing I want to bring up is Clear Lake Shores is one of the most expensive cities to come in and do any kind of business with. So what I pay for permits here far exceeds what I pay for something else. So although I feel bad that the price is high, but it's kind of like doing the cost of doing business in that city. I mean, I can't negotiate my permit fees when I'm building something in the city, or if Randy's going to do an air conditioning job. I mean, they're set, they're high, but we deal with it. Because again, that's the cost of doing business in the city of Clear Lake Shores.
Any further discussion? Sorry, Ms. Mazowski.
Did y'all take out the base flood elevation limitation?
Not yet.
Are you planning to?
I think we need to talk to Lauren more about that.
I was gonna say, that was one of the things that Lauren really pushed for.
That
was
actually,
something that our city attorney really pushed hard for. He had the verbiage, so we'll have to discuss with him what we can and can't put in there.
he verified it, and Kevin went to FEMA, and they said that needed to be in there.
One other question, will you be using 11 or 14
It-
or 16, because the higher numbers are gonna eliminate most of the players.
We can get back with Lauren and find out.
I think what we use is the year the house was built, like
Right.
Alex was saying, so it will be different for different ones. The older ones that are non-conforming, whatever, we're gonna use that BFE.
And Kevin said he would look at that when the application comes through, and if it's below the BFE for that house, then it wouldn't be approved or recommended to council.
Right.
I had a question from hanging over from last time. We talked about due process and civil court versus municipal court, and I'll be honest, I didn't really get a good understanding of that last time. This ordinance seems like it would go through a process which was going to city council, and that's against Lauren's recommendation of pursuing these through municipal court, or am I misinterpreting this? I'm asking because I don't understand.
So this is something that I personally fought for. Part of the thing that brought this to be was the city wasn't able to really enforce anything. They had a hard time policing problem STRs because of the process and how long it took to actually address an issue. The only way that I personally feel like we can really police or manage or have any kind of teeth in the game is to have a fee schedule set up. So I asked Lauren to put the fee schedule back in. That's where the 300, 500 suspension of your permit comes from. Now, the appeal is to city council. So the longest you have to go in between getting a violation and appealing is 2 weeks. We meet every 2 weeks. So you just have to get on the thing and appeal to city council. We may see a lot of it at first. I have a feeling we won't. But that's the only thing I know of to really put any kind of teeth in the game. If we put it back to the way it was before, we've really kind of done all of this for naught, and the only thing that came out of it was 25 STRs, or 20 STRs.
So, I mean, I like that idea, the quick action. I think that's good. But when we have an STR that doesn't appeal, doesn't show up, doesn't care that we're sitting on this side of the table instead of that side, like what are we gonna? Because we have some of those that exist. I know 515 Clear Lake Road. I've heard it a million times. I don't know if that's actually the right number, but I think that's it. Does this help us do anything about that problem? Because that's a big concern I have, is the ones that are actually the chronic issues.
This helps us as much as anything can. You're going to have people that break the rules. End of discussion. You're going to have people that don't follow the rules. This at least gives us a faster avenue to go after them and to really hit them in their pocketbook. And then to revoke their permit. Now, will they continue to operate without a permit? Possibly. And we'll have to address that as it comes.
Okay, so this is a quick resolution if they play ball, and if they don't, then we're back to the old method, and we have to go through
Then we'll have to go to
long game.
Lauren said, this aligns us in this chapter here, and then coming back after a year, it needs to go into the zoning, and that gives it more where you can actually, go down the road of civil and take it to the district court.
Thank you.
I think somebody over there was first, I think. I need a microphone, please. Sorry.
I guess I'm confused about, why can't we enforce our ordinances?
We can. There are people that break the law. That's why we have police.
Yeah,
there are people that speed. There's people. I mean, it just.
But I just sped, and I had to go to
and
court
you got a
and pay
ticket, and you went to
$300.
court, and that's exactly what we're saying.
This
You
particular,
break the law, we're going to ticket you. You're going to pay it, or you're not going to pay it. I mean, there's going to be the cases where people,
if I'm right, Brent, I believe this is owned by an LLC. Is that right? Or in this particular case?
Yeah, in this particular occasion, it's owned by an LLC. We're trying to locate an individual that can be contacted for their court process notification, because you cannot cite an LLC. So, the other thing is that this is not a criminal deal, even though some people might think it's criminal. It's a civil. And we're still in the United States of America. We can't run a bunch of chains around the house and padlock it and make them comply. And so, I know that when it finally does get to court and a judge is presented with facts that indicate that they haven't complied, or they've had opportunity to and they continue to operate, then I imagine that will bode not good for them at that point. We try to talk to our judge just to make sure that, not necessarily to convince him, but to make sure that we're in alignment with this process. We also have spoken with the prosecutor, who's put some polish on this as well, and given us things to think about. And this ordinance, the mayor did indicate that, there's something else that's available and it's being developed. It's being worked on right now, and it's called the special use permit. And that is linked to the actual parcel of the land. And so that lot would have a special use permit. That's a process through planning and zoning. It is zoned that way. And if that property is sold and changes hands with another owner, then that special use permit is no longer valid, and so it would have to be applied for again. And so that planning and that zoning process, it can be considerable. It takes a little bit of time, and so you buy a little bit of time there. And I think that I'll just touch on the fee. you know, the permitting fee of $1,000, it is salty for someone who's maybe a hobbyist or doesn't have a lot of stuff lined up. I think we get that. It's not a huge hit to someone who's a professional and has it rented 32 weekends a year with a bigger house. But that is the one opportunity for the city to make a collection on an item that can help support this program and what people want. Because even if we cite them into court, and even if they're found guilty or they violated that and they receive a fine, the city doesn't receive anything until they pay it. So, and there's no attachment to their property for that under this. You know, we want them to be good neighbors. We just want compliance. That's really easy. And I think everyone else just wants good neighbors when it comes to the STRs. And I think we've been fortunate, just based on some of my experience and talking with other cities, of kind of how dull we are. I mean, we're a place that people want to come and visit, but we're nowhere close to being a party town. So, I mean, that bodes well for our favor. So, that's all. That was the only comment I had for you.
Greg?
What I'm confused about, mainly on this whole violations thing, well, a lot of things. I don't understand the special use yet, but I will. I'll get educated on it. But, and it sounds silly, but it's a good example. If you give me a violation for long grass, exactly how long does that grass have to be? And will that long grass violation be given to me because it's my house, or the STR because it's the STR? I need to know how long my grass can be. And that's just an example to make it simple. But every single thing that we're wanting to make, to be able to charge a violation on, has to be spelled out. Here's the violation, here's what makes you guilty, and the numbers, I don't know. And then, because I think really it's going to go to the courts, not to y'all. Because I feel uncomfortable. If I'm not going to get in trouble, but if I did, I trust y'all. But the next council might be all STR haters and would just soon throw shit at me as, look at me, and you may too. But I don't feel comfortable appealing to my accuser. And it needs to be taken, the appeals process needs to be taken out of the city, away from the emotions of who likes who and who's buddies with who, etc. You're not going to get a fair trial between an STR owner and council, in my opinion. Maybe with y'all, but we don't know what's coming in the future. And like I said, nothing in any of that is spelled out. Does anybody know how long my grass has to be?
There is no violation for your grass.
So you can't vote on it until you know. I promised I'd leave you alone, but I lied.
Yes, ma'am.
Linda, 1019 North Shore. My question is this. In defense of my home, I've proven that I've been exonerated twice by FEMA, TCEQ, and the appraisal district. I built with all appropriate permits. In the defense of my home, I discovered numerous false elevation certificates in the city of Clear Lake Shores. Now you've got a situation with STRs that are going to be regulated by elevation. What's going to guarantee that this fraud that has been repetitively done over the 30 years that I've lived here with false elevation certificates, what are you going to do to make sure that doesn't happen with those that are really below 11 feet with no permits? They are unlawfully built, and yet they're going to put a false elevation on it to meet the requirement. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Yes, ma'am. Microphone, please, and state your name, address.
Thank you. I'm 900 Juniper Road, and I just want to say I agree with Dawn on the $1,000 being extremely high. I also think that we do pay taxes as being people who live on the island, and part of my taxes, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, go to the police that enforce ordinances, some of which are already on the books, and so we're already paying for noise ordinances and other things, and I don't think it's my job, because I have a STR, to then police people who are doing something illegal and to make sure that they're permitted. That's something I feel like my regular taxes should be doing, and I think you're favoring people that are, you know, never live in the neighborhood, never do anything in the house, are using it only as, you know, only to make money, which is, you know, as why I'm doing it also, but that they don't have any ties to the community, they don't care about the infrastructure. I don't know, I can't speak for them, that's not fair. But, you know, I understand wanting to take care of the infrastructure in Clear Lake Shores, but I think hurting people who have, you know, a smaller house, or, you know, maybe they don't do as well as renting out their house, or they don't want to. And if your purpose is to keep some of that feel of the island, you know, it would be, I see it as more beneficial, or I don't see it as a harm to do a lower permit fee. Also, is there any thought as far as how high that permit fee can go? Is every year it going to be raised $1,000 until everybody's put out of business, essentially? You know, are there any thoughts of that? Or where does that money go? When you have your hot taxes, there's rules on what that money can go to. Is this just money to go to whatever we want? Are just some thoughts that I have. But I just hopefully don't get attacked later by anybody.
Well, no, not at all. And I appreciate you standing up and talking. Good news, bad news. You don't pay a city tax, so you don't pay. This Clear Lake Shores doesn't have a city tax, so you don't pay a tax to police that as of right now. We have a zero ad valorem tax. The ordinance is written with the fee, whatever it ends up being, and the ordinance would have to be amended to change that fee. So I don't anticipate that changing. I can't speak for future, but
I thought the fee was going into the fee schedule. This sets it in place, and then it goes to the fee schedule.
The permit fee.
The permit fee, yeah.
Yeah.
It just appears on the
So, y'all go to $1,000 this year, and I'm thinking about getting out of business. You go to $2,000 next year, I'm out of business. So, if your goal is to get rid of STRs, you're getting there.
It's not our goal. Anything else?
Council all good? Any action on whatever it was? Item 1A?
No.
Item A?
No action at this time.
Table it to next one?
Correct.
And I just had one question. Would you like us to incorporate these changes with legal assistance and address those? Okay. It'd be helpful if maybe if you identified something that really kind of stood out to you, just forward it to me and I can get that taken
So
care of.
yeah, and I'm gonna change it from being color coded to something else so he can see exactly what the changes are.
Thank you.
Alright, item A is tabled to next meeting. Item B, ordinance 2022-07, an ordinance making appropriations for the support of the city of Clear Lake Shores, Texas, for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2022 and ending September 30th, 2023, appropriating money to the various funds of the city, adopting the annual budget for the city of Clear Lake Shores, Texas, authorizing the city administrator to take certain administrative actions regarding the budget. Mr. Spear, you have anything to add?
Just that I had made an adjustment, on my notes, I think I read it wrong. I took $15,000 out of two different items to create a separate item at 596A, and that's on the general, I sent you an email prior to the, council meeting with a little bit more date, with all of the, detail on it. Normally I supply this attachment A, which is part of the ordinance, and the addition was it didn't change the bottom line of the budget. However, what it did is it reallocated some funding from other improvements and from landscaping, two items that were discussed, $15,000 each, into a separate line item or an account for $30,000 earmarked for pedestrian bridge across at Clear Lake Road in Jarbo. So that was the only change to all of that, and I think Councilman Scanlon has some commentary on that, or maybe a change or something that he'd see.
Motion to approve the ordinance 2022-07 as written.
A second.
Ledee, discussion?
Okay, I just went back through the meeting minutes and I was working with Johnny and Brent and just looking at all the different, amounts that we'd need for the pedestrian bridge. And the minutes from the last couple meetings actually had, line 596 general improvements at $25K and 596A, the pedestrian bridge, at $50,000, which is a $20,000 shift, which aligns with what we discussed at the workshop and the last meeting. So, like to amend my motion to approve ordinance 2022-07 for the budget for 2023 and adjust line item 596 general improvements to $25,000 and 596A, the pedestrian bridge, to $50,000.
A second.
Motion by Mr. Scanlon, second by Mr. Move the, was it 20K?
Yes.
20K to their line item, all recorded. Christie?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Any further discussion? Having none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Motion passes.
Mayor, I just want to thank council and staff for their assistance on the budget, and it's never an easy thing to complete. It's kind of complicated, and ours isn't huge, but we're very conscious of our pennies so we can save them and make dollars, and so thank you for allowing us to do that.
Yep, and ditto, thanks for continuing to do your zero-based budgeting each year and justifying all of our funds.
You're being such a good steward.
Item C, approve moving previously rescheduled council meeting from Wednesday, October 5th, 2022 to Monday, October 3rd, 2022. The reason for that is a conflict with National Night Out and the TML conference in San Antonio. So the last meeting we moved it to the Wednesday. There's a TML's going on, and National Night Out is on Tuesday, so now we're moving it to Monday.
I'll make a motion to move the October 5th, city council meeting, to Monday, October 3rd.
A second.
Motion by Mr. Fisher, second by Ms. Ledee. Any discussion? Having none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Next is item D, a combined waterfront lease F-136A at 5.36 feet and F-136B at 15.59 feet to one lease to known as F-136, equaling to 21.73 feet. Current leaseholder is Glenn and Wanda Dow. And Mr. Spear, do you have anything to add?
I do not. I think, documents are explanatory, just combining these small segments.
I'll make a motion to approve the combining waterfront leases F-136A equals 5.36 feet and F-136B equals 16.59 feet to one lease to be known as F-136 equals 21.73 feet. Current leaseholder being Glenn and Wanda Dahl.
I second.
Motion by Mr. Werth, second by Ms. Leday. Any discussion?
Are there any reasons not to do this that I don't know of? All right.
Any further discussion? Having none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Having none, motion passes. Item E is transfer waterfront lease F-136 from Glenn and Wanda Dow to Steve Lee.
I make a motion to approve the transfer of waterfront lease. No, I lost the name. F-136.
I'll second.
Motion by Ms. Leday, second by Mr. Wertis. Any discussion?
Are we sure we're okay with this?
I don't know. I think Mr. Lee, do you have a problem? Do you have any issues? Well, I think we should hold back on this one. All right. Go for a vote here. All in favor, aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Having none, Mr. Lee, it's approved. All right. Item 12 is adjournment of our meeting. It is 7:52.
Thank you, everybody.